Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday to everybody. It's time for Troop Talk Live. This is our monthly show where we talk about all things related to the Scouts BSA program, although I will say that today's topic probably could be applied to multiple programs. The topic of today's show is the BSA swim test. You might know it as the swim check. Joined today by our good friend Jay, who's a volunteer on the BSA's National Subcommittee for Aquatics. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Aaron, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Glad to have you here today. We appreciate it.
Aaron, it's Valentine's Day.
It is Valentine's Day. Thank you to the folks watching.
I wrote a little something for you.
Oh, I can't believe it. I'm so flattered.
Aaron, we go back.
Yes,
Roses are red. Violets are blue. I'm getting ready for my annual swim check. How about you?
I love it. That is great. Thank you, Jay, for that. I appreciate that. That's very funny. I wasn't expecting that. Quick shout out to Rusty, who's watching from PAC 84 in New Philadelphia, Ohio. Wendy, who's watching from Troop 38 and PAC 38. You guys are going to enjoy this topic today. Again, we're talking about the BSA swim test, the BSA swim check. I was just telling Jay before we went on my personal experience with the swim check. You might be thinking, okay, it's February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. It's cold in most parts of the country. What are we doing talking about swim checks right now? So weird. Just wait until you hear what we have to say. Jay, before we get started, maybe you could just give us an idea. If some of the folks watching might not be familiar with the swim test or swim check, can you give us an idea of what this is all about and why we do these?
Yeah, sure. First of all, let's all start out with the understanding that the BSA has an outstanding safety record in aquatics. And probably the foundation of that safety record is what we call our Safe Swim Defense, our Safe Swim program. And one of the elements of the Safe Swim program is ability groups. And within that, Safe Swim Defense, ability groups, we have swim classifications of non-swimmer, beginner, and swimmer. And we'll talk more about those. But basically, you have to go through a check so we know where you should be qualified to swim and what sort of area.
Gotcha. So the swim check is just that. It's checking your swimming ability and physical fitness, things like that. How often are we supposed to do these things, Jay?
It's an annual recheck.
Gotcha. And right on cue, our viewer Rob says it's a good time to pre-check for summer camp. Rob, you've come to the right place. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. I was telling Jay early about my experience with the swim check. It was right around this time of the year when my son was getting ready to go to summer camp, coming up in a few months. We started doing swim checks. It was cold outside. I hadn't swum in a while. I hadn't gone swimming in a while. And I thought, well, yeah, I know how to swim. I'm in decent shape, but can I do a BSA swim check? We're going to talk about those type of topics right now. I mean, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it is winter. Most folks have not been swimming lately, right? What kind of effect does that have on people's ability? We're talking about kids and adults.
Yeah.
On your ability to participate in a swim check.
Yeah, let's be honest. We're not all going to the pool every week and doing laps, right? Many of us haven't been swimming since last summer or whenever, or maybe once or twice since then. And even when we were there, we were probably having fun playing around, but we might not have been actually swimming distances or things like that. So it's a good time now to go to the pool, do a little bit of a swim, make sure you're ready. Not that it's all that strenuous, but make sure you're ready and able. And I want to give a shout out to the person before, pre-camp swim checks. Exactly. We love to do these pre-camp swim checks so that when you roll into your summer camp, you're ready to go. Maybe you can avoid that bit and just get on with your program, make it easier for your local camps, waterfront, all of the above. So great point.
Shout out to David, who just has joined us. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure and share your thoughts and comments in the comment section. If you have any questions for Jay, we've got our resident expert here for another 25 minutes or so. Jay, so to clarify what we're talking about, it is not unheard of for folks to not go swimming. I think probably a lot of people haven't been swimming since maybe September, depending on what part of the country you live in, which is going on October, November. I mean, it's been a few months.
Right.
Again, even if you feel like you're a strong swimmer, once that swim check comes, it's different, right? It's different than just jumping in the pool for fun. So what kind of advice can you share with folks on how to be prepared for that swim check?
Right. So that's a great idea. Let me go through the categories of our swim classification. So we have 3 categories. They're non-swimmer, beginner, and swimmer. Now, to be categorized as a non-swimmer, there is no test. But when we run swim checks, we still like to get those folks in the water to have fun, splash around, and just, we want them to become beginners and swimmers eventually. For the beginner's test, you need to jump into water over your head and swim 25 feet, turn in a sharp turn, and swim back to the position. So let's talk about those elements for just a moment, Aaron.
Yep.
We ask you to jump in feet first. Why feet first? Is because more often than not, if you fall off a dock or a boat, you're not going to dive in and do a beautiful swan dive. You're going to fall in feet first. We want to be sure you can come up, level off, and swim a distance. And in that case, you swim 25 feet on, in some manner, in a forward motion. You make that turn and go back. And that's what we want to see. Now, let me tell you why we want to see that, Aaron. If you go on YouTube or wherever you wish to look, and you look at a lot of the rescues performed by lifeguards, what do you think they are? Out in the middle of the ocean, with the guard going out on the... No, they're usually close to shore where someone who was just standing around bobbing in the water stepped off a ledge, it got a little deep, and then all of a sudden, ruh-roh, I can't swim. And then they're stuck because they can't swim whatever short distance it is to get back to ground. And that's what we're looking for in the beginner's test, because that's where most of the rescues occur. Now, on the other hand, there's incidents where you may be out further away from shore and you have to swim a longer distance. That's where the swimmer's test or check comes in. Again, you stand at the ledge, you jump in feet first, and you're going to swim a total of 75 yards in a front fashion. And there the strokes actually matter. You have to swim using either or a combination of, not all at once, side stroke, breaststroke, trudgeon, crawl, for 75 yards with a turn. So you want to see you to not dog paddle. You got a side stroke, crawl. That's great. With a turn. The turn, why a turn? Well, the turn is, again, think back to the beginners. You fall out, you got to be able to turn around and come back. If you're swimming out, you may be going the wrong way. You have to swim back. And then the final 25 yards, not feet, is in a resting backstroke. Now, this confuses people a lot too. So, and I see this all the time when I watch others giving a test. They say, well, you can't do the back crawl. You remember this one, right? Well, you can. Everybody thinks you have to do the elementary backstroke. All it says in the requirements is a resting stroke. We just want to see that you can roll over on your back and in a resting way with your nose out of the water breathing, get back. We're not worried about what type of stroke it is. And the final piece is that you have to demonstrate floating. Now, this again causes a lot of chatter in terms of what floating is. I'm sure most people, when they think about floating, they think about floating on their back. Does it say that? No, it doesn't. It just says float. So if you can do that jellyfish float, come up and take a breath and go back down, A-okay. We just want to know that if you get too tired for that backstroke, you can float, kind of get rested up, and then maybe go back into it. So those are the elements of those, and there are reasons why we look for those.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Jay, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. I know we've got a few more questions to get to. Real quick, a couple of similar comments from Rob and Mark, who are talking about summer camp swim checks. And I believe what they're kind of speaking a little bit of a language over my head, but I think you'll understand, Jay. I think what they're talking about is some camps will check you when you get there, regardless of what you've done leading up to them, because maybe they're at elevation, maybe the water is cold. Does that sound right?
It's the camp's prerogative to give you a check there, whether you have a swim check or not.
Gotcha.
I know a lot of camps will, I know at least in our camp, we don't want anybody giving swim checks. It tells you who can give them in the regulations. But as long as we sign off on those individuals to give the swim checks, go do it. We want them to, we don't want to spend all of our time at the waterfront giving swim checks, but they have the prerogative to do that.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong though, Jay. If let's say if your troop is planning a trip to summer camp and you know you're going to have to take a swim check when you get there, you should still do your own swim check as soon as you can, right? Now, here, locally, wherever you are. Am I right about that?
I think you should, just to practice. One of the things we haven't talked about yet, but I'm sure any scoutmaster out there will know what we're talking about, is how anxiety filled the first day of camp is. You know, the scouts are running wild. They're setting up their tents. They're getting out their gear. They want to go to the trading post. You know, it's a little bit of a high anxiety day. We want to keep it relaxed. So if they can go and practice a swim check on their own, so when they get to summer camp, been there, done that, wonderful.
Yep. And the swim check, the way you just sort of went over the structure and the way it's set up. Mark comments that the situation when non-swimmers get in over their heads could come down to poor ability group making. Well, it could also come down, though, I think, to someone falling off a pier, right? Or falling out of a boat or something like that. That's why it's kind of interesting, the swim check. Like you said, you have to jump in feet first, because generally if you fall off a pier or something like that, you're going to end up in the water. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, the swim test is designed to tire you out a little bit, because that may be the situation that you find yourself in. You may have to swim 25 yards, whatever it is, to shore. And you may also have to rest in the water when you're tired. Am I right about that?
Right. Exactly right. This is all more, think about it. This goes back about 75 years or so. And it goes back to units going out and units going on a swim. And instead of just cutting all the scouts loose to go swim, it was decided that we ought to have a little structure to this. And obviously, if you're not a great swimmer, you need to be close to shore. If you're a good swimmer, you might be a little bit further out, but not so far that you couldn't get back or that an effective rescue couldn't happen.
As a quick side note, Jay, I'm the guy who compiles the stories in Scout Life magazine for Scouts in Action, where scouts save someone else's life. And I can tell you, it's kind of amazing how often a young person who knows they can't swim will jump into deep water, unless it's classified off or something like that. It does happen. So it totally makes sense. Kim asks, when you're doing the forward movement, does your head have to be out of the water the whole time? And Rob answers, no, it does not. When you're swimming forward, you can lift your head up to take breaths, right?
Right. Well, yeah, no one's going to swim 75 yards with their head underwater. No.
Well, I'm sorry, out of the water the whole time.
No.
You can, right.
We're not talking. So I think what he's asking, do you have to have rhythmic breathing, meaning head in the water, coming out? No, we just want to see that you can swim in a strong fashion going forward, not a dog paddle, because you get tired doing a dog paddle. But let me just go back a little bit. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when they're doing it, they should swim on the surface of the water, right? They shouldn't be swimming a couple of feet down below, right?
Yes. No, it's on the surface.
Need to be on the surface. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Jay.
Honestly, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, that's my fault. I interrupted you. We'll get back to it. Yes. Let's talk a little bit, if we could. A lot of our parents are my age. They're, some would say maybe a little bit older. I wouldn't say that I'm older, right? But some people might say that. What effect does that have, Jay, on our ability to complete a swim test?
All right. All right. So first of all, you jog my memory back.
Okay, good.
You're talking about children jumping into water over your head. When you administer these swim checks, you should also be very sure the scout, even the adult, knows what they're going to do.
Yep.
Because particularly a child, a scout, if the big lifeguard or the scoutmaster or whoever it is tells them to jump in the water, they'll jump in. And if they go to the bottom and don't come up, that's no bueno. We don't want that. So we want to be sure everybody understands what's expected of to them. And if the scout says, I don't want to do that, okay, don't do it. Why don't you sit here and watch it for a while till you're comfortable? But back to your question about the adults, or I would say anyone, and I think the scout or the gentleman or whoever was that brought it up earlier about trying it just for fun. Can you swim 75 yards? Can you swim 50 feet? Just go out and do it, because we all know if you haven't been swimming, even if maybe you go to the gym every day, but if you haven't been swimming, it's not exactly the same. So, just to get your breathing down and your arm movements, it's great to get out there and practice. And again, I would say not just adults, but for scout age children as well.
Yep. I was looking here at the comments. Amanda says their troop is doing their swim checks tomorrow. Amanda, good job. Excellent timing. Glad you're here. Robert Carter is watching. I think Robert has tagged somebody in the comments, or he's saying he's from the Boy Scouts of America East Carolina Council. Thank you for watching, Robert. We appreciate that. So I was saying earlier, Jay, when I had to take the swim test myself, the very first time I did it, I looked at the requirements and I thought, I'm in okay shape. I'm not an elite athlete, of course, but I know how to swim. But gosh, can I really go do this? I felt like going to practice a couple of times made a huge difference. If I had jumped in the very first time ever, there is a little bit of anxiety there. What kind of advice do you give folks about dealing with if they have anxiety about it? I guess adults and kids, Jay, if they have anxiety about it.
So we really want to lower the anxiety level. It's not a test as you think about it. But let's think about the scout, young scout in their position. First of all, usually a swim check can be chaotic. 1,000 kids around, they're all screaming, they're yelling, the pool's noisy, or you're outdoors. That's anxiety right there. They're already nervous, right?
Right.
Maybe they're not sure what is 25 feet. The average scout probably have trouble telling you what 25 feet is and back. Not a chance they're going to tell you what 75 yards is, right? Plus another 25 yards of backstroke. So you really need to explain that. You need to take your time and do these. Don't rush it. This isn't an army drill or anything like this. Just relax it. Make everything relaxed. It might be better to have the bulk of the scouts kind of off in the background so that there's only one scout up there. Remember, it's one scout in the water and one administrator or one check giver at a time. Not 2 to 1, not 10 to 1. It's 1 to 1 right there by the side, easy reaching rescue. Make sure they know what they're getting into. They might need to say, well, can I touch the water? Sure. Go down, sit, put your feet in the water, splash around. The added anxiety level particularly comes for most children who swim primarily in pools, not like when I was a kid, and they get to Lake Mumawaki and they can't see the bottom. Wow, what's that like? Well, put your feet in it, or let's go walk around the shallow area, make sure you know what's there. A lot of ways to decompress that and just lower the anxiety. For adults, exactly the same thing. Well, let me finish up with the kids. The one thing, there's always the kids that were on the swim team or think they were on the swim team or wish they were on the swim team, and they want to show off to their peers. You don't allow that, because 90% of the time when a a child doesn't pass the swim check, it's because they run out of gas. And the other part is because they don't have good stroke mechanics. So the way I do it is I say, look, Susie, you have to stay with me. I'm kind of an older guy. I can't walk so fast. Don't get ahead of me. Kind of can't keep your eye on me the whole time so they feel comfortable. They know someone's watching them, and just stay with me. Don't get ahead. And I just pace myself by what I see them doing, because otherwise they take off like a jet boat, and about halfway down, that jet runs out of gas. So you as the administrator can really control that. And I do the same for the adults. Now with the adults, I've seen this 100 times too. You've got the scoutmaster there. They're down there. All their scouts are looking at him or her, and they want to show off. And they get in the water and take off like a jet too. And I can promise you they don't have the gas. And so it's the same thing. Sir, you need to walk with me. I can't keep up with you very fast. Just keep your eye on me and let's take it easy. Most of them thank you afterwards, because, and to take that one more level, you might offer to give the adults their test when the children are out of the way. So it's just, the adults together a little bit, look, they don't have to show off or be worried about the other scouts watching them.
And I'm going to ask Jay a trick question. Jay, I'm pretty sure you're going to be sharp enough to get this, but talking about youth, maybe our adults who want to go super fast, what is the time limit for a swim test? How fast do they have to go?
Well, we like to finish before dark.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time. It's kind of like the mile swim. Right. I only keep records for the longest ones I've had to watch. Not the fastest ones.
Right.
So, you just take your time. Now, remember it has to be in a strong fashion. So if they're kind of going with the current for the swimmer's test, that's not a strong fashion. So, but no, there's no time limit. But they do need to be moving.
Sure. Got it. Yes. Our good friend Omid is watching. He says everyone loves playing in the water. If scouts are taught to swim and learn, the joy of water will be doubled for them. Agree. Question, Jay, about the length. I wonder do you know why that length was chosen? I think it's that four trips back and forth of 25 yards each, right?
Well, it's not 4. It's for the beginner's test. It's 25 feet, turn and back, or turn, make sharp turn. And then for the swimmer's test, it's 75 yards using that front stroke, 25 yards in the back. But the question is, where in the heck did this come from?
Right.
I had that question too. And it's a little bit unclear, but it kind of, the way it's been explained to me by my friend on the committee, David Bell, is that back when Frank Mills was designing scout waterfronts, they were kind of saying, well, this is how big the areas would be, and this is how far the scout would have to swim to get to the side or to the pier or whatever. And it was kind of based on that. Maybe not the greatest reason, but it turned out to be right for the very reason I explained to you at the beginning. Falling off the shelf, swimming back to shore, out in deep water, getting tired, or hitting something, getting disoriented, falling off the boat. They figure if you can swim 100 yards, you're probably going to find some way to get support.
Right. The whole idea is to be prepared, right, in case something unfortunate like that happens. Excellent. Kim says swimming is a life skill. I love that scouting makes swimming a requirement for advancement. Mark points out that they do swim checks in the pool. It's a more controlled environment. The pool was built to be 25 yards long. That's exactly Mark, what we did. Our pool was exactly the right length, so it worked out great. Here's a really good question for Katie. What kind of accommodations are there, Jay, if there's a scout who's differently abled or has a disability or something like that? How do we treat scouts like that when it comes to a swim test?
Well, we try to work with them. Remember, we're trying to test to or check to, if you will, an objective. And our objective is that scout can be safe in the water. So if we have to accommodate a little bit, let's say a swimmer, maybe, you hear this all the time. This isn't the same thing. but they can't maybe move their arms exactly right because of some problem, whatever it is. We can work around that. Remember, we're looking for the distance, we're looking for the turns, we're looking for the floating, and we can be a little flexible on that as long as they meet the objective of being able to get back to support.
And what about this, Jay? What do you know what the idea behind the requirement that last 25 yards, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is on your back?
Right. Well,
yeah, I wonder why.
Well, when you're going forward on your front, your face is in the water part of the time, or you're getting splashed in the water. Whereas when you're on your back, whether you're doing a back crawl or an elementary backstroke, it's really a chance to be breathing all the time in the air, not rhythmically in the water, and you're relaxing if you have a good stroke mechanic. So we just want to see that if you get tired, you roll over on your back and rest, which is one of the first things I teach a scout when I teach them to swim.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And again, for these swim tests, Jay mentioned it earlier, there is an adult going along with them usually, I think, right? Walking along the side of the right next to where they're swimming in case something does go wrong. That's part of the requirement too, right?
Right. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be adult. It has to be someone who's able to perform some sort of reaching rescue. Like I said, ideally, they'll be right alongside the pool or alongside the pier where you can reach them, hand them a pool noodle or whatever device you might have. You're not talking about a lifeguard. They're not going anywhere. They're right there. And it's one-on-one, nice and easy, nice and slow.
Awesome. Awesome. Jay, this has been an excellent conversation. I appreciate you joining us today. Again, everybody, it's the middle of February. Maybe swim checks are not on the top of your mind, but maybe they should be. Jay, any final thoughts before we let you go on the importance of the swim test, how folks can be prepared for it? Anything else that we haven't covered that we need to address real quick?
Yeah, just always think back. We have a great, safe program if we follow the rules. The rules we have here is safe swim defense and our classifications. That's number one. Number two is let's get out there and practice it before you do it so we lower the anxiety for everybody. And three, just take it as it comes. Nice and easy. It's not a big deal. And maybe if you don't pass it the first time, rest a little bit, practice a little bit, get right back in and try it again. There's no limit on how many times you can take it.
That's great advice right there. And actually, before I let you go, Jay, I do want to address this question for Susan about the floating check at the end.
Right.
I wonder if you could provide some advice for kids or adults who might struggle with that part, staying buoyant when you're exhausted, you're out of breath. Any technical advice you can provide on how folks can achieve that?
Yeah, so the jellyfish float, if you remember, it goes like this, head in the water. So you're not breathing. The only way you breathe is to push your hands down and take a breath. That takes a little bit of training. On your back, I have a lot of people tell me, oh, I can't float on my back, I sink. Maybe 5%, 3% of the people are sinkers. Most of them just don't have the right body position. I'll take care of that. Let's go over in the shallow area. We'll work on body position, neutral buoyancy. It's just a little practice. So that would be a great thing to do right now is go and practice your floating where it's nice and relaxed and you can maybe work on that positioning.
Yeah, even that aspect of the swim check, which might seem like the easiest part, even that might require some practice in advance. So a great discussion, great advice, Jay. Hey, man, thank you again for joining us so much. I really appreciate that Valentine's sentiment that you sent out earlier. I feel like I'm now prepared for my swim check. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you watching at home. Thank you for watching. Be sure and tune in Friday for our next episode of Cub Chat Live. Same time, same channel. Until then, see you later, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Jay.
Happy Valentine's Day.